if the owner doesn't demonstrate the behavior that they want the people under them to, they're going to have a very difficult time reinforcing that and saying, hey, I want you to be honest, just as an example. I want
Yeah.
you to be honest with me, but you lie to them and you don't tell them what they do wrong and you just keep it to yourself and stress out about it at night, but you never tell your employees, you're never honest with them.
Mhm.
Well, you don't display it. So why would they show you? You're
Yeah.
not being an example to them.
So, Maritza, I've been thinking of trying to create a team around me for this little podcast and the business that I have, right? So, what is the type of people that I should be having around me? Any starter tips that you would like to share?
Yes, I'd love to share that the best thing for you to do initially when you're thinking about building a team around you for anything, I mean, I know you're thinking about the podcast, but any business,
Mm.
is doing a audit of what are the things that you are good at and what are
Mm.
the things that you are not good at. And I would just kind of make like it's like a four box chart where it's, what do you love doing? And are great at doing. So I would keep doing those things. What are you good at doing, but you hate doing it? Like maybe you're really good at editing or something like that, but you hate doing it. It takes too much
Mm.
of your time.
Mm.
And then I would also look at what are the things that you aren't good at doing, and you don't enjoy doing. Definitely getting those things off of your plate. And then also thinking about, okay, so basically we're trying to make sure that you are delegating out the things that you don't do well or the things that are not important. So in the podcast, it's thinking, what is the main purpose of the podcast, right? Are you trying to generate leads for your business in the back end? Are you just trying to connect with more people? Are you trying to connect with the
Mm.
guests? What is the main purpose of the podcast?
Okay. So if I can visualize it a little more clearly, it would be like an axis, which is basically about my skill level and then my perception of how much I enjoy that particular task or thing to do, right? Just wanted to understand, would it be possible if I add this thing about, like you mentioned, importance, right? How important it is in the whole business, right? So if a third axis to make it 3D, right? Like it won't be four anymore, it probably become eight, but then an axis where my skill level, my enjoyment, and probably one of the importance to the business itself. So would that be a little more value adding to the whole exercise, or is it just
Yeah. So it's two different exercises that you have to think about. You have to think about one where your skill set level is and also what you enjoy doing. Because while you might be good at doing certain things and you have the capacity or the skills to do them, you might hate doing it. And so what you will probably end up doing is procrastinating. And even though you can do it and you can do it well, you leave it and you leave it. And then, you start delaying
Mhm.
doing it. And then you end up
Yeah.
doing it all at the end. And
Hmm.
you don't end up doing a very good job because you have procrastinated on that. So that's the first exercise. The second exercise is looking at what is urgent and what is important. And so that's why understanding the purpose as to why you created the podcast, what you want, the result that you want to get out of it, and also like business in general, is understanding what's urgent and what's important. And not everything that's urgent is important.
That's
Right.
right.
And
Yeah.
so you might have an urgent, like you need to film the podcast that day, right? And so
Mhm.
that's urgent and it's important. So the things
Yeah.
that are urgent and important, you should always do.
Hmm.
Things that are important but not urgent, you could schedule out so you could do them at a later time because it doesn't need to get done right now. The
Yeah.
things that are not urgent and not important, you should just not, nobody should be doing them. And the things that are urgent, but not important, you can delegate to somebody else, right? So
Right.
these are ways of thinking about how do I delegate out the things that I need. And so it's really two exercises that I would have you do so that you could start thinking about who do I need to hire, because you would delegate out the things that are not urgent. I'm sorry, the things that are urgent but not important for the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And you would also delegate out the things that you don't do well and you hate doing, or you don't, think because you procrastinate on them. So you might as well have somebody else that has the skill set to do those things.
Yeah.
And whether or not they enjoy it, that's something you'll find out, right, in
Yeah.
interviews. But those are the things I typically would try to get out of your to do so that you're building a team around people's skill sets that are complementary to yours, and you're still getting things done that have to get done within the business or the podcast.
Okay. Now, talking in general business sense, right? Say I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to build a team around me, right? When I try to build a team, I have to look at the skill sets of the person, right? And it is not necessary that the person I'm trying to interview or bring onto my team, I know everything about what skill sets they should be having, right? Now, this is a chicken and egg problem where I want a person to do a certain task, but I don't know exactly how that task is to be done. And then how do I exactly assess that person, right? Because I'm the only one in the team who has the know-how of the business itself, but also does not know what the other person is supposed to be doing exactly. How do
So
people usually go around this?
this is part of I have a proprietary methodology called the GROW method. The
Mhm.
first part of this is the first part is G for guide, right?
Okay.
And for employees, it's kind of like if you use ChatGPT.
Hmm.
If you put an input to ChatGPT and you're not very clear, it might give you a output or a result that's not very good or is not what you were
Yeah.
looking for, right? But it's
Hmm.
because the input you gave it wasn't thorough or wasn't you weren't clear yourself, right? It's the same with an employee. You could think of ChatGPT as an employee. You
Hmm.
need to be able to guide your employee to understand what is the result that you want them to do.
Okay.
So, if you want them to edit a podcast, the
Hmm.
first thing they're probably and you don't know, let's say you don't know how to edit a podcast, you don't know how to make it look great. Your first job as a leader is to guide the people under you. So, we need to it takes more time on us, but we need to understand how to clearly define our expectations to the people under us. And how would I do that? Well, you could look at a couple podcasts, and there's probably podcasts that you like, and you like how they're edited, and you like looking at them. And so you'll start to notice, okay, there's patterns about what I like about
Hmm.
others and what I want mine to come out as. So you have
Yeah.
to talk about preferences, your preference as the owner of the
Hmm.
business, so that the person under you can execute it the way you want. And so,
Hmm.
even though you don't know how to edit,
Hmm.
right? As
Yeah.
an example, you can say, I like the lighting of this podcast. You can
Right.
say, I like the audio of this podcast.
Hmm.
And so, if you hire someone that is skilled in that particular capacity, they
Hmm.
will either be resourceful and able to figure out what microphone they used, what lighting they used, how to position it so that it looks well.
Yeah.
They'll be able to figure that out, and you don't have to teach them that because they're skilled in that, or
Hmm.
they're at least resourceful and have a good base level understanding in that role. But
Yeah.
you do, as every leader, you do have to be able to be clear when you
Yes.
explain what is the expectation on how does a good job look like. This particular podcast, this example or three examples that I'm giving you, this is what I think a good podcast edit looks like and how I would like mine to look like. Or maybe you say I want mine to maybe look a little different because of but you need to be able to clearly communicate that to the person under you, and that's your job as a leader. That's not the job of the person under you. That's your job as the owner and the leader
Hmm.
of the business. And their job is to now deliver based on the input that you gave them.
Yeah.
And when they come back in the beginning, every time there's a new relationship between, leader and the person under them, or like the owner and employee, there obviously is going to be a learning curve.
Yes.
So they're not going, usually, unless they're highly skilled in this role and have done it
Yeah.
many times, usually they're gonna have to come back and you're gonna say, well, I like that you did this, but next time do this or fix
Right.
this, or
Hmm.
so that they start. The thing about having teams and building teams that an owner will trust to execute like they
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
in order to be able to do that, you have to not just have more hands. An owner doesn't need more hands to get
Yes.
things done. They
Hmm.
need more minds that think like them.
Right.
And
Mm.
so, this communication and going back and forth, you need to be able to do that and give some time to this new employee so that after you've done that enough times, they'll start to understand, okay, this is what they want, and I know how to execute and give it to them.
Okay. Now, this guiding part, right? When we talk about being clear about our expectations and stuff, but then there is still that limitation where I cannot decide the. I mean, I can give them all the expectations I have. They might be resourceful, but they still might not be skilled enough to be able to capitalize, or say they're not up to mark on the experience or just using the tools, right? So how do you get out of it? Because say I have a SaaS business, okay, and I want a developer to do some maintenance or QA or testing or whatever, and there's a certain skill level required for whatever I want to do, but I have no clue what skill level is required. Where does that piece come in when going to build a team?
Well, when hiring someone, as the leader or the owner, you have one of two jobs or both jobs. One
Uh-huh.
is picking the right person,
Yeah.
and two is training the right person. So if you hire someone and they're highly skilled, so they've done this like a million times, they know exactly what to do. You don't have to give as much direction to that person
Right.
about
That's
their
correct.
particular role. You don't
Hmm.
have to give them as much direction because they know this particular role. But those types of people are usually more experienced and
Hmm.
usually have to pay them more, usually, right? Because they have much more experience in this role. So you don't have to teach them or train them on their role, but you still have to teach them and train them on how we do business in this particular company. Because
Yeah.
how they maybe have communicated to their leader before may not be the way you want them to communicate to you. So there's still some training, and
Hmm.
they need to understand how you properly communicate and execute things in this company, but they
Hmm.
might know exactly how to, code for this particular, program, or if we're talking about SaaS.
Right.
So it's when you're hiring, when you're interviewing people, it's really understanding, do you want someone that has a lot of hard skills? And hard skills, I mean, like a developer, they know how to code and they know how to code well.
Yeah.
Or do you want someone that has a lot of soft skills? So soft skills is like they have a good attitude, they're resourceful, they
Hmm.
show up on time. Like just they smile, like
Yeah.
soft skills, right? Where hard skills can be trained,
Yeah.
but sometimes we need someone that can come into the role and just execute because maybe we're in a niche, or so it has to be a highly trained person. But then we have to understand that now we have to train on soft skills, right? And
Yes.
sometimes having to train on both is, it's a lot. But either way, as a leader and owner, you have to train the people under you, whether it's in their skill, with the hard skills, or it's in the soft skills with like their attitude, how they communicate to others in the company, how they communicate to you as a leader, all things like that.
All right. Now, from the team perspective, right? Uh, you pick a random set of people and then you are the center of the universe, right? For this little set of people that you've picked together and just randomly put in a room. Getting them to work together is a different ball game, or right?
Right.
Now, obviously, when I work with teams, I've done that with several different people. But somebody who's going out there, who's been a solopreneur, right? And who's done everything themselves, one man gets all right. And they suddenly have three people under them doing small little tasks for them. How, if there's one tip that you could share for that one guy going out and building a three-person team, what would that be?
To define your core values for the company,
Mm,
because that's also part of my guide methodology is I help to the leaders to clearly define like what how core values basically is how do you want people to behave in your company and the achievement of your goals. That's what core values means. It's like how do I want people to behave day in and day out while we are trying to accomplish this goal in our company. And most business owners, even with a three-person team or 50-person team, don't define that in their company. So they're looking for people, but they don't know what they're looking for.
right.
And you need to understand that the way you want people to behave will all stem from the owner. So for that person with three people under them, the core values stem from the owner. And you
Right.
need to understand what are the core values? What's the behavior that you demonstrate? Because if the owner doesn't demonstrate the behavior that they want the people under them to, they're going to have a very difficult time reinforcing that and saying, hey, I want you to be honest, just as an example. I want
Yeah.
you to be honest with me, but you lie to them and you don't tell them what they do wrong and you just keep it to yourself and stress out about it at night, but you never tell your employees, you're never honest with them.
Hmm.
Well, you don't display it. So why would they show you you're
Yeah.
not being an example to them? So I think it's getting them really clear on how do I show up in the achievement of the company goals and how do
Hmm.
I need people to show up because some things will drive you crazy. Like if you're a very honest person and someone under you is lying to you, that will
Yeah.
probably drive you
That's
nuts.
right.
And so you need to get clear on that and make sure that the people under you at least they don't have to be like you. Like they don't have to have the same personality type that you have or any of that, but they
Mm.
do need to have the same base level of values and behavior so that we know we're building this company around the type of behavior we want to display, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's very important and a lot of leaders and owners, business owners don't do that.
I mean, it's double standards are abound,
Right.
right? I mean, people talk about being on time, but then when it comes to the owner is always late for every meeting,
Late.
but then they will
Yep.
keep talking about being on time, but they
Right.
are themselves late for every other meeting, right? Um,
Yes.
but as an employee, if you're sitting here and looking at an owner or boss, right? Is it possible for the team to take initiative and lead this, uh, I don't know, reorg of the core values and coming back to what is being preached? Because sometimes what is being preached is not being practiced, right?
Right.
While we're
I
talking
think
about top to bottom, is it possible to be bottom to top?
that's a very good question. I think if the leader of the organization or the leader above you does not display
Hmm.
the core values, it would be very difficult to change anything bottom to top.
Hmm.
Because really, it's a lot easier for top to bottom, like for you to see, okay, the leader shows up early as an example. And if they always show up early, well, then you start thinking to yourself, man, I really gotta get here in time because
Yeah.
they don't even have to say anything.
Yes.
They're
That's right.
just showing you with their example what
Mhm.
is expected.
Yeah.
And you, as if you are an employee under them, you can go and tell them,
Hmm.
hey, I think as a bottom to top is harder because you are thinking about like, will I lose my job? Whereas top to bottom, you can't lose your job unless like the company goes under, right?
Yeah.
So it's harder for people that are like you said, bottom to top to influence the top. Still can, but they
Mhm.
can't. But they might be. It's a little harder to do it because they are afraid of the consequences that will come of saying, "Hey, you tell me to show up here on time, but you don't come here on time. Like, what the hell? I don't want to wait here." You
Yeah.
know, and so, and it's funny that you asked this because I had a job where this happened. I
Hmm.
was told to be there on time. And the manager would get there late.
Yeah.
So I got really upset and I told the manager, if you're going to tell me to be here on time, I didn't have a key to get in, so I had to wait outside the door.
Hmm.
I said, if I have to get here on time, you better freaking get here on time. And I guess I'm just very blunt. But most people won't do that
Yeah.
because you're afraid you're going to lose your job. But I was just so upset that I told that the manager and I said,
Mhm.
you better get here on time because I'm sick and tired of waiting outside for someone
Mhm.
to open the door. And what ended up happening? That manager started getting there on time.
Mhm.
So I think you can influence,
Uh,
but you have to be really honest and be able and not be afraid that you're going to lose or like the
mhm.
fear of consequence, or
Yeah.
fear of punishment would have to not be there for you to influence. But I influenced my manager. I didn't influence the owner. He still got there late, right? So I think that can you have some influence? Sure, but it's a lot more difficult because really the top should be displaying the example that they
Yeah.
want everyone else to show. That's how it should be. If it's
Mhm.
not that way, I think people under you just don't take you that seriously because
Mhm.
it's like, why do you tell me to do something that you don't do? It's like your father telling you don't smoke, don't drink, but they're an alcoholic and they smoke all the time. Well,
Mhm.
you're like, well, I'm I'm the listen to what I say, but don't do as I do. Do as I say. That
Yeah.
doesn't typically work. It's like
Yeah.
no, I see your example, and more is caught than taught. So you can tell me something through my ears, but my eyes are showing me a different thing.
Mhm.
That's not. I am more affected by what I see day in and day out, and
Yeah.
so I think you can have some influence, but not as much as top to bottom would.
Okay. Maritza, you've talked about your grow framework. Would you mind walking us through the other three letters, if that's fine?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's the grow methodology. It's guide, research, optimize, and win. And so there's multiple things that we do within each letter, I guess. But the
Yeah.
main one that we've been talking about has been G for guide, which I think is foundational to
Yeah.
business growth
Mhm.
because we need to be able to guide our team and our a team could be like one or two people, right? It doesn't have to be
Yes.
huge. Or a team could be many people, but it's how do we, how do I guide everyone under me or my team to what is it that we're trying to do in this company and what behavior are we going to display in
Yeah.
the achievement of this goal or this vision?
Mhm.
And then also, how do I communicate to my team clear
Mhm.
expectations so that they do their job well and I trust them to execute? Those are foundational things for
Mhm.
business and it's necessary for every business.
Right. Okay. And what do you basically do? Sorry for not asking this earlier. What do you
Yeah.
basically?
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I help leaders to grow revenue with teams they trust to execute. That's what I do.
Okay, just going back to teams, I don't know why, but then of course, teams are crucial, right? This team that is being created like a solar system or probably just a universe of people around, right? As it scales, there are more levels that get created, right? When it's just four people, it's just founder and one, two people. But as it grows, there's levels. If there's something that needs to be taken care of from in these levels, right, like the leadership has to ensure one skill set in the top two levels. What is that one skill set?
If there's one skill set that we need to ensure the business has in the levels
Management
of
levels.
management,
Yeah.
I think initially for most businesses, it's marketing and sales is the main skill set that needs to be there. But after you have figured out sales and marketing in your business, it is leadership development, I think.
Hmm.
Because when you're talking about two levels of leadership, we're saying, okay, the owner, there's only so many people an owner can
Yeah.
influence, right? We all have a limit to how many people we can talk to, and we have
Hmm.
hours in the day. So let's say that person can talk to, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 people a day or something, right?
Yeah.
So just as an example, great. So then they need another couple leaders under them that could also influence like 10 people, right?
Mhm.
And then another one. So you're talking about a much bigger organization, probably 50 plus people.
Yeah.
And at that point, this is where leadership really matters. This is where core values really matters.
Hmm.
Because if your owner is like brutally honest, as an example, like what we were talking about before, and then the person under them is like, they're honest, but they're not like super, like they're not as strong as this person,
Yeah.
right? Then this person, the second level of leadership, is getting this
Hmm.
type of behavior showing. So they probably will show up even less
Yes. Yeah.
honest. So we need to reinforce amongst leaders
Hmm.
the behavior we want to display, because it only gets worse as you go down.
Yeah,
Or
that's
like the core values only dilute, they start to dilute at the farther away you are from the owner.
right. Hmm.
And so that's why hiring people that are very in tune with your core values is
Yeah.
important, or at least have them to a base level, but then you have to train it up so that they increase it, right? As when
Yeah.
they're in the company. But in any company, I think marketing and sales is the most important, at least to get the company started and have momentum. But in a company that has two levels of leadership, you're going to see all things. You're going to have sales,
Yeah.
marketing, operations, finance, probably not legal yet, but you'll be getting
HR. Yeah.
close. You might have IT, right? People or HR, depending on how you say
Yeah.
it. You'll have different levels of. If you already have two levels of leadership, then you're gonna have some of those things. But
Mhm.
I think marketing, sales is very important, and then also operations is very important, and finance, so that you're not losing the customers that you are getting in from your top of funnel. You're not losing them because of bad service at the end,
Yeah.
when they're already within your company. And then also you're making good strategic financial decisions, and you understand where the money is coming in, what makes you the most money, and how
Mhm.
you can capitalize on that. So you're not just doing every service and doing all the things. It's no, you're really focused on the main things that give you the most amount of cash flow and profit.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maritza. This conversation has gone everywhere when it comes to teams. We talked about building them, we've talked about nurturing them, we've talked about teams influencing owners. Yeah, this was a great conversation. Thank you for joining in. Before I close, how can people get in touch with you and know more about
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me is through my website. They can schedule a free call, or they can opt into one of the free resources that I have on my website. It's www.opt, OPT360, op360.co. So that's OPT360.co.
Thank you so much once again, Maritza. And to the audience who's been watching and listening, do leave a like if you've been listening long enough. And the comment section is open for questions, perspectives, and suggestions. And yeah, also please subscribe if you've been listening this long. Thank you so much for joining in. And thank you, Maritza. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me.